Hello, 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 people. Welcome back to an episode of the USL Show. It is great to be back. And as we are at the top of the show, I do want to just go ahead and get in front of this. We do regretfully tell you that the USL Show is on indefinite hiatus. However, we will come back when there is a Division One league with a much bigger podcast. Much more people will be on here. Don't worry. We are a marquee market that they definitely want. John, how are you?
Yeah, good. How are we going to fund our 15,000 seat stadium, though?
We live in Raleigh. Anything's possible.
Okay.
Alex, how are you?
I'm going for that taxpayer money. Hand it all over. Hand it all over.
Phil, how are you?
Publicly funded and ready to podcast.
Well, last week I decided to join the government and I had a slight shutdown of my own week. So it's good to be back and see you guys again. And I came back at one of the I guess just craziest weeks we have had in the USL in a long time. And if you didn't think the playoffs were good, wait till Tuesday hit. Union Omaha has a coach, but everybody else fired theirs. And North Carolina is going to cease to exist. So before we get into all that, I want to go ahead and thank John's landlord, Don Garber, David Horn, Josh, Dylan Reed, William Lamb, Sandy Lester, Ryan Smelter, Matt Catfield, Andrew Towsley, All the Hedgehog, Kunal Patel, MOS, NF Registry, Tim Knox, Rion Lacars, Jeremy Churchman, Alberto Aguilar, Noah Telfer, Michael Fuchs, John Fuller, Christopher Cohn, Frank Anthony, and John Hunt for supporting us. We appreciate you and everything that you allow us to do. So let's go ahead and get started off with the news of the day that hit last night, was official this morning. North Carolina FC is on official hiatus. And this gets announced right before they're going to be taking on Rhode Island FC at home to go on to the Eastern Conference playoff final. There's a lot to break down here. John, you wrote a fantastic article over on Backhill that everybody should be reading without spoiling too much, because people should go read it. John, what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, important to contextualize why this is happening, where Steve Malik, who is a very rich person by pretty much anyone else's standard, but maybe not rich by the standard of supporting a professional soccer team. He has run this club for a little bit more than a decade at this point. In 2017, he acquires the rights to an NWSL franchise, moves Western New York, and has them become the North Carolina Courage. And the NWSL is a bigger deal. It is more profitable. They have better attendance. And in 2024, Malik decides, I need additional investment on that side, and maybe I want to sell the team, and then I want to do the same thing in the USL Championship. So the Courage, initially, they've got a more than $100 million sale on the table. That falls through at the last minute. So now it becomes, there's this guy with the resources getting squeezed. Something's got to give. And in this case, it's the men's team in the USL Championship. And in the article, I kind of break down why this is a big deal, that a club like North Carolina that has done everything right on the field, is in a decent stadium situation, leads the way in terms of academy production. If they decide this isn't worthwhile unless it becomes 2028 and D1 solves our financial problems, that's something that's going to have ramifications elsewhere. And yes, there are pieces of the North Carolina story that are unique, but I think it's something to worry about. And before I get off the soapbox, I do want to say it's a terrible situation for John Bradford, the players in North Carolina, to have this happen in the middle of a playoff run. And then the idea that 2 months from now, you don't get severance pay if you were on a multi-year contract. Everything about it throws these people's future into question in a way that is a shame.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's one of those situations too, where they recently, North Carolina just came back to the championship after this self-relegation. And so it's clear that they have these sort of discussions about how we're going to make it work and how we're going to finagle this and that. And they made a really big deal of returning in 2024 to the championship. This whole like FOMotion and all that sort of stuff. Like there was all this chatter about it, and we're back and all this sort of stuff. And 2 years, it's like, oh, actually, sorry, we're gonna like sit out until D1 starts. Like, I don't know. To me, it's tough because people understand momentum, in a specific way. And you can say, hey, like, we have momentum and we're building towards D1. And people aren't going to believe it if you are also stopping operations. Like, this is the reality is that there's no momentum if people can't see it. And I can't understand necessarily how North Carolina FC shutting up shop when they've struggled, despite the fact that they do quite well have done well on the field this year, won a home playoff game. The fact that they haven't been able to connect in a way that gets people out to that stadium, the way they haven't been able to build like a base that really energizes the local community. I don't know what 2 years off is going to do for you in that respect. Like, how are people going to be more energized in 2 years when it allows Charlotte FC to take more of a foothold? And obviously, like, I just don't understand what the end game is here. And to me, this just sort of reeks of like PR wise, how do we soften the blow of shutting down operations rather than smelling like, oh, this is like a genuine plan to come back stronger. To me, it just feels like a way to explain away the fact that they aren't going to be playing for the next 2 years, at least, if they ever do come back.
Or it's a way to try to desperately attract a buyer.
That too.
But yeah, I mean, like, and let's like entertain that they come back to this Division One. Is it even appropriate for a team to do this? Like, as far as like the integrity of the competition and the leagues, like to just say I'm sitting out the next 2 years of championship so I can go to D1. What happens when you go back to D1 and then you get relegated? Are you going to bolt again? Like, it's just there. Yeah, I'm upset with the league for even entertaining this nonsense. Like, I get it. They're in a precarious situation because they are going all in on this new system that they're going to build in 2028. And I guess they need to maintain a foothold in all the biggest markets to start that division. But, it's a terrible look to allow the owner to do this. And then also with the USL Players Association right now fighting for the CBA, the players are screwed over because right now they only get 2 months pay, where the demands for the renewal would be 75% of the guaranteed contract. So I at least out of this, I hope that the rest of the owners give the USLPA what they want, because I think the remaining players deserve it after this.
And the one last thing I'll say to your point, Alex, is the fact that, like, what message does it send to the teams that they're expecting to operate in the championship for the next 2 years?
Yeah, is it going to encourage other owners to do the same thing? Like, right, it's a terrible look. Like,
why would anybody continue opening their stadium if the idea is it's like, oh, well, we could just take a couple of years off, save some money, and then really pour all our money in once D1 is here? Like, obviously, that's not the conversation that's happening with the rest of the league. And they've basically set the precedent that it is a possibility for anyone who's considering, like, how do we make it to D1? This is an option, and I agree that it's a bad precedent to set.
Yep.
There's a lot of places I want to take this. I'm just going to kind of hit them in order as like I was kind of presented. First things first, John, you mentioned the money side of this. You mentioned in Backyard article as well, that, he got $92 million, right, from selling off a startup, which, by the way, I wish I could have $92 million. But let's say, Alex, $92 million just hit your bank account. and you're going to go to Arthur Blank down at Atlanta United and say, I'm going to give you $92 million right now to sell me Atlanta United, how does that conversation go for you?
Slams the door in your face. Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
If you walk up to the owner of Louisville City and say, I will give you $92 million right now. I know the Lynn family is very rich, but if you give them $92 million right now, do you think there's at least a conversation?
Probably not.
No, not with the stadium assets, but more of a conversation than Atlanta.
Yeah. So what I'm just saying, like the money here, the money discrepancy is we're talking millionaires to billionaires, and we hear this getting talked about all the time when, you know, you have CBA conversations happening in the NFL, MLB, NBA, et cetera, et cetera. But these are legitimate millionaires owning this, and millions of dollars burns up a lot faster than billions of dollars. And so we're looking at someone who just recently last year was trying to sell both the Courage and North Carolina FC. And based off of rumblings, again, no concrete facts here, part of the reason why they took the jump up to the championship was to build up the value of North Carolina FC because it builds up the net worth. Will it cost you more liquid money? Yes. But the net worth itself makes you go up. If I bought North Carolina FC today, my net worth goes up, even if I am more in the red in my actual bank account. So that is something that they're looking at. The other thing that you could be looking at here is you're going for that D1 league. How much would that affect your net worth as well? That's something else that would drive up that price. To me, this feels like just we're putting this in the shop window and hoping somebody buys it off of us on the idea of going to D1 and raising their net worth. This just feels like a shop window thing to me. On the USL player side, they deserve to be paid. Obviously, we've talked about this so many times. And if there was anything that the USL owners did not want, it was to give the USL Players Association more ammo to fight against them with. But this is just another thing that they have right there of, oh yeah, in another bargaining chip, we want more security on our contracts, not just year-long contracts that they wanted. If you decide to shut up shop, pay us for our full contract, not just those extra 2 to 3 months. And then there was the last bit, and I totally lost it. So it doesn't matter. I will go ahead and get off my monologue.
I do think the point about these teams being in the shop window, when you look at the financial numbers across the league, and at least the small sample that we have that's public for teams that have listed themselves for fan partial ownership, every club in the USL effectively is losing $3 to $7 million a year at a minimum. Every owner is basically banking on, okay, we're going to get to 2028, Pro Rel will be there, D1 will be there, and then the valuation skyrockets. The more I see things like this from North Carolina, the less detail we have about what this is actually going to look like come 2028. I don't see how it's going to come together. I don't know if the media money, the sponsorship is going to be there. Is attendance just going to jump up because we're saying, oh, it's D1 now? There are so many what if questions ahead of that point in time. I'm worried that North Carolina is maybe the start of teams realizing that they're not cut out for the continued losses with that hope of profitability, but not a guarantee of it at the end of the day.
Which reminds me of what I was going to say. One thing that I think the USL really screwed the pooch on here was also reiterating the Division I thing. Because if North Carolina just said we're going on hiatus and we're putting in an application for Division I, we would just probably been like, man, that's crazy. But the fact that the league is reiterating that, I think is insane by them. I do think that if they had just kind of ignored that part or did not include it in any press release, now maybe they legally have to say they have submitted an application, but they could have left it at that. then maybe, what we're talking about is this going to set a precedent for teams to close up shop for 2 years? I don't think we'd be having this conversation. The fact of the matter is that if these stadium standards get changed, like we all assume they will have to for there to be a Division I, Tony Scholes will talk about it at some point. If those standards do change, then what was folding for, right? If the narrative, the top down is pushing to these clubs that the stadium standards will be changed, that's the way we'll have Division I, then why would North Carolina be looking for a 15,000 seater, right? This just feels like there's a lot of things that the league, they love to announce things, and now they didn't have a concrete plan in place, because they could have said the professional standards are changed, we're getting them changed, we've already talked to them, it's already set, it's good to go. Then that 15,000 number would not even be in this conversation, right? We'd be having another conversation, because now it's, will North Carolina come back? Oh, it's only if they add 5,000 more seats to the stadium, or if they build a completely new stadium. Like, there's a lot of moving parts here that come from the USL is just likes to announce crap.
Yeah.
So, is there any other North Carolina talk we want to have?
Said my piece.
There's about to be a massive just lottery at this point for players. There's about to be a lot of really good teams who are about to get a whole lot better, and it's about to be crazy. So there is that. Okay. So how about we get to the smattering of firings? First up, Wilmer Cabrera, who technically not fired, just simply not renewed. Apparently skipped his post-game press conference after the game, after the loss, and he was never to be seen again. Phil, this is your backyard, so give us your piece.
Yeah, I mean, Wilmer, I think, and I said as much on Seriously Loco's Twitter account, but I would say, like, Wilmer deserves a lot of credit for the fact that he has righted the ship in many ways, and he brought some level of stability back to Locomotive's on-field product. So that is, like, very admirable and commendable given the amount of turmoil like that the club was in. It just, I mean, last season was by far the worst season in franchise history, probably up there with some of the worst seasons like in USL, like, and some of the stretches were like record bad. So getting that right is key. And I apologize in advance for the political analogy, but Wilmer always felt like Biden 2020, right? Where it was like, hey, we're going to bring in Wilmer, and it's not like he's not the guy, but we have to figure things out in the short term, and like we'll find a better guy eventually, but we'll, like, for now we're going to just use Wilmer. And then at the end of last season they were like, good news, like the guy, like Wilmer is the guy. And you're like, is Wilmer the guy? Like, you kind of sold him as this like Band-Aid, and now he's the guy. And so I think like people just weren't, I don't think anyone in El Paso ever saw Wilmer as like the permanent fix or the long-term guy. This year, people did start to see, okay, maybe this is the club's plan. They've put in Ray Sari now as the director of football or technical director, or whatever you want to call it. But like, okay, Sari's the roster guy, Wilmer's the on-field guy. And now I just don't really understand what the club's plan is. Surprise, surprise. And they've been very opaque about like what's going on in, news that will shock absolutely no one. I think like what would have been the better approach to this is being upfront about the fact that, hey, yes, Wilmer is the bridge to something else. They even said in the announcement when they announced that they weren't renewing Wilmer, and that news about a new head coach will follow like in the coming days or something like that. And so like they teed it up as if they already had a solution. Now, I haven't heard anything. I don't think anybody's heard anything in terms of like what their idea is. My personal concern is that Ray Sari is going to be named. And I have but that is based on nothing. That's based on the idea that they said they have a plan and haven't said anything. And nobody has heard anything. So that's why I think that it might be someone internal, because why be upfront about, hey, we have a plan, if you don't. And it's equally likely that they just don't have a plan and that they're trying to say, hey, we have a plan and we're going to figure it out and we're building the plane as we fly it type deal. I think ultimately I will look back on, as a Locomotive fan, I'll look back on the Wilmer Cabrera era as one that got Locomotive back in the area of the standings that they belong. And I don't feel any more confident about sort of the long-term future of the product on the field than I did under John Hutchinson or Brian Clarehout. It feels very tenuous, because a lot of these guys are Wilmer guys. And so now, what do you do going forward? Do you just blow it all up again? And then it's the complete Wild West and we saw how that went, over the 3 years since Lowry was, or in between Lowry and Cabrera. So I don't know. I just think John said it very well in his back four this week. So if you aren't subscribed or paying attention to John's Substack, in addition to the back heel sub, but he said it very well in that, you don't do this unless you're going to go for something big. And so my hope is that they have big ideas about where to go next. But hope is a very strange thing. And I don't necessarily trust them to take the big swing that I would prefer. So we'll see what they do.
Yeah, I mean, Wilmer is the ultimate stabilizer. You know what the end result is going to be when he is your manager. If the decision is we are trying to do something above the level that Wilmer gets you to, go different. Hire somebody young, hire someone with ideas, show some ambition no matter what this is. I'm lower on Wilmer than a fourth place finish and decent XG would probably beget. I just don't like watching his style of play, and that's on me. So yeah, El Paso, go do something that makes this team fun to watch again.
And I will just say the reality of the fourth place finish is that for anyone who watched the game, number one, holy moly, one of the worst performances I've seen in the playoffs, from anybody at any time. And maybe it was because Wilmer knew he was gone. Maybe the players knew he was gone. The last time that I saw an El Paso team fall that flat in a home playoff game was the year that Lowry announced he was going to Indy. So so there's that, but nobody was there. It was a home playoff game and no one came. It was I'm sure the numbers were okay. And looking back through the archives, you can tell when El Paso is energized about a team. That place is loud. That place is full. Locomotive are not relevant in El Paso sports right now, which is bad, because the two things that people in El Paso are UTEP football, not good. Dallas Cowboys football, not good. Right. So this is a city that's crying out for something to cheer for, and they didn't go to the home playoff game. So this team needs to do a lot of work to get relevant again in the conversation in El Paso.
How about one that absolutely shocked me? Hogan and Chambers are both gone from Colorado Springs. 1 year removed from making it to the championship final and winning the whole dang thing. They make the playoffs the next year. They go toe-to-toe with the number one team in the West, and it's enough for you to lose your job. There's a lot of thoughts, and yet somehow I'm speechless on the matter. someone to tell me how I should feel.
So less than 1 year ago, this team was on the precipice of winning a title. And the people who did that are gone now. And I think what really confuses me is, what was the expectation for Chambers and Hogan when you don't give them the money to keep Ronaldo Damas, Speedy Williams, Tyreek McGee, Jairo Henriquez? Like, the core of the front end of that team was completely gone. They had a lot of defensive injuries throughout the year. Could James Chambers have done a better job on the sideline and in his in-game tactics? Of course. Does Hogan shoulder some of the responsibility for failing to replace some of that talent? Yes, also. Again, they won a title in 2024. You made the playoffs this year, and you looked fine in that playoff match against Tulsa. To me, that is, maybe we're going to run it back and see what happens midway through next season. I just don't get this decision. There was nothing that said the locker room was lost. You still saw the consistent philosophy that defined this team at their best. Really confusing decision.
In general, I am just befuddled because when you look at the team they ran back after a title contender, I don't have it in front of me right now, but none of us were very high on this Colorado Springs roster. Like, coming into the season, they did not supplement the talent that they lost. Some of their better players they had were from loans, and they did not regain those loans. They lost key players. And maybe that falls on Hogan being the director of football or GM. I really don't remember the exact verbiage, but it's all the same. I don't remember, maybe that's on him. But how can you say that's Chambers, right? Unless they are truly a two-for deal where they both just come in together and they had to go out together as well. That's really the only thing that makes sense to me. And, kind of what you said, John, about Wilmer and what we have said about Oakland with them getting rid of Phil Auber. A lot of these managerial decisions, you don't make one unless you feel like you have something in the bag. And honestly, when I'm looking at Chambers, the only people I could think that you are realistically saying, yes, this is a step up, is Ryan Martin. And that's, unless something insane happens, that's not happening. So you're looking at, are they Phil Auber truthers where they saw he was open and said, no, he's the guy? They have about 4 months of proof versus 5 years in a championship. This just feels like a massive risk where one did not have to be taken at all.
Colorado Springs are also like a Peñaranda save and a Matt Mahoney header over the bar from still being in the playoffs. Like, I mean, this was fine margins, as we saw, and we'll talk about across this first round, but like extremely fine margins in a single elimination format. And what happens in a world in which they advance, right? Like, are they still getting the sack? Because have fun explaining that, right, to the fans. So the fact that we're having this conversation now after, one season removed from a trophy and still making the playoffs in a, albeit like challenging year after losing some of your best players. I don't know. It does strike me as weird. And I think there are clear differences between what was going on in Colorado Springs and what was going on in like the other places where people decided to make managerial changes. And this one just sticks out like a sore thumb, unfortunately.
And any final thoughts on this one? Well, before we go over to what was the best USL playoff week ever, Westchester just fired literally everybody, like literally everyone. And it was not a good season, but I think a lot of us expected the coaching staff to get another year to figure it out because it was honestly so disastrous that you could just start over fresh and just do the opposite thing with the roster. But instead they decided to go fresh with absolutely everything.
Yeah, it was a surprise to me as well. He dealt with a lot of injuries this season, especially in the defense. I think I counted up and there was like 9 or 10 different center back pairings all season, which is just kind of absurd. You can't establish a good defense like that. So because there always seem to be like 3 of the 4 or 5 center backs they have were injured in a rotating basis. So yeah, seeing that whole thing happen, I guess they're looking for a fresh start. John and I both spoke to Mitch, the owner of at Westchester, and it seems like they're looking for a coach with more ties to the New York City area and looking to get faster and younger. I guess that means a lot of those high-profile veterans that they signed are probably on the way out. And I think we may hear an announcement very sooner rather than later, possibly this week, as far as finding a new coach, new sporting director, new assistant, new everything.
Yeah, no, hearing the same thing that they, from what I understand, like already have who the next coach is going to be. I think it is harsh on Carton. Being an expansion team is hard. Like there's no two ways about it. And even if you are bringing in veteran players, those are guys who have learned separate systems that you have to mesh together. It's a difficult challenge, and they had the bad luck with injuries. You can only point to the penalty issue they had early in the season. It's just downright bad luck to a certain extent. I think if you gave Carton a second year, this team would have improved. At the same time, if the people behind Westchester feel like we have a clarity of vision of where we want this project to go and Carton can't facilitate that, it makes sense. Like when you're this early into being a club and you start to form that identity, I understand trying to work towards that specific idea rather than stick to something that isn't going to be the move.
Yeah, and I think this year it showed us that expansion teams can be successful. But I think like it is the exception that we have 2 expansion teams still in our playoffs.
Yeah, as the Rhode Island fans hop into the chat of is the expansion team hard?
Yeah, expansion hard. Yeah, Naples, Portland. You can talk that too.
Well, like with it being election day as well, New York decided it was time for a change.
That's right, buddy.
Well, we're moving headquarters out of New York City. We're talking to our finance people now.
One thing you mentioned, being an expansion team is hard. I mean, 5 of the 14 teams in League One were expansion teams, right? Or is it 6? Was it 5? Yeah. 2 of them made the playoffs. One of them is already in League Two. One of them finished last, and the other one just missed the playoffs. Last year, we had Spokane make the playoffs, and if I remember correctly, they were the first expansion team to make the playoffs since the first ever season of the league.
And they barely made the playoffs too.
They barely made
kind of
it.
Fell backwards into the playoffs and then went on a run.
That's the thing. It's like it's incredibly difficult. It's incredibly difficult. I'm kind of just thinking back I feel like Moneyball gets mentioned on this show a lot, but the whole it's not that hard to be an expansion team. Tell them, Wash, it's extremely hard, right? Like it just feels like maybe they pulled the trigger on the gun just a little too soon. But I don't know. Maybe they really feel like they got somebody going for them. But also, if that person was not Nate Miller, I don't know. It better be a dang good hire. Do we talk Nate Miller on here, by the way?
No, and we absolutely should. Oh, and we'll let Alex get this, but I just want to say, I think Nate Miller might end up being the best coaching hire of the offseason in American soccer. Like that guy could do an MLS job and he would fit the bill. And the fact that Boise now has a manager that led a USL championship team successfully and proved himself to be an utterly brilliant tactician, He's led an expansion effort in League One and identified guys in Lansing, that have gone on to have long playing careers across the USL.
Yeah,
He's got
that
the eye for
Lansing-
talent. He's got the local ties. Everything you want out of your leader in year one, Nate Miller has it.
That Lansing roster, looking back at it, that was pretty stacked.
Crazy. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and Boise, if they're gonna fill those stands like Portland, they may as well let's go all in. It's a statement.
Do we have? Look at that.
This is-
scarf.
Vintage.
Not just that, it is the inaugural home game for Greenville Triumph.
Wow.
Lansing Ignite.
That's
and last
unreal.
Their first and
Wow.
last match against Greenville.
Yeah, that I forgot that Lansing exists, and every now and then I look up there. I'm like, oh yeah, that was cool. So, okay. Any final thoughts before we get to the playoffs? Alex, did you get to monologue about Nate Miller?
Yeah, I just did. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was too busy trying to find the scarf. I got to be honest with you. My brain was on a mission. So let's go to the playoffs, why don't we? Where it was the most exciting round of playoffs we have ever seen. And we're going to start in League One, as we normally do, where we have one Knox taking on FC Naples. And this doesn't seem like too much of a shock. In fact, I think this is the only chalk matchup throughout the entire playoffs in both the championship and League One. So this should be quite interesting, as Knoxville took down Charlotte 1-0, but Charlotte, or 2-1, but Charlotte, Christian Chaney, because it's always Christian Chaney, made it interesting at the very end. And then we have FC Naples, who makes it through on penalties against Union Omaha. Their magical run comes to an end. And these two teams are facing off against one another, where Knoxville narrowly won the season series 1-0 with basically one draw, one win. That one win was 1-0. So this is just an absolutely fascinating matchup.
Yeah, this is going to be a defensive battle. The wild card here is Lalo Delgado. He went down apparently injured late in extra time against in the first round against Omaha. Joel Serrano came in. Joel Serrano is the Puerto Rican national goalkeeper, national team goalkeeper. He's known for stopping penalties, apparently. He came in cold and stopped two. And to win that game, that was just, you just can't write those stories like that. That's just that's playoffs for you. So that's going to be the wild card is the goalkeeping situation for Naples. But this is going to be a knockdown, drag out defensive battle. I think 1-0, 0-0, go to penalties again, something like that. But Knoxville, I don't think they had too much trouble with Charlotte. I don't think it was ever really in doubt watching that one. So this is going to be a good one.
Yeah, excited for the matchup because these teams are a little bit similar in the way that they're so solid defensively. They've got that spark on the counterattack. It's going to be kind of silly to say, but if you can keep a lid on Carson Henderlong, you're going to be in good shape if you're Knoxville. I just trust that if they limit him, they have enough weapons, whether it's Deanne or a Tequila. Stuart Ritchie on the overlap is unbelievable. One of the best players in the league for my money. Even Zaracostas was huge in that Charlotte game. So this is a Knoxville attack that's hitting form at the right time. It'll be difficult to break down Naples. I think it matters a lot if it's Serrano in goal, just in terms of the communication and the chemistry. So I lean that way for one Knox, but going to be maybe the most fascinating game as we enter this round.
I think the thing that leans this just Knoxville's way is, to your point, John, like the amount of weapons that Knoxville have. They just have a lot of different ways that they can hurt teams, whereas I do think Naples are a little bit more of a blunt instrument in terms of, like, if Carson Henderlong is holding up play and is firing, like finding a way to get shots off in the box, like, and maybe getting some set piece opportunities. I think that they obviously have a chance. And I was impressed with the amount of chances that they were able to create against Omaha, particularly second half. It was one of those things where, like, watching the first half, I'm thinking like, oh man, this might get ugly. The way Omaha kind of came out of the gates, and then Naples really controlled the second half. I thought that was impressive. So they have every chance in the world of getting a result here. And I think I just give Knoxville the edge because of that quality up top that can hurt you at literally any moment.
Yeah,
if you're someone who's sorry, go ahead, Alex.
Say these center back pairings here. This is probably like the number 1 and number 2 pairings right now in the league with Skelton and Hogley and Dangler and Evans. Like that's ridiculous. Spokane might is up there as well, but like yeah, those 4 going head to head on the opposite ends. Like it's going to be tough to break through those defenses.
Yeah, and that was one thing I was going to mention on the Naples side. When you look at the spine, when we looked at Naples preseason, that was one thing we noted. We were like, okay, we got Heckenberg, who's going to be in your midfield, which if you're someone who's looking at the YouTube graphic, I forgot to write Heckenberg. He's where the DM is. I just forgot to write his name. You have Dangler, you have Evans, you have Delgado, you have Lalo, assuming he's healthy. We're like, that is an insane spine to have in your team. But you're also looking at an Ugly, you're looking at a Skelton, you're looking at Lewis, you're looking at Johnson, looking at Caputo. And this is just going to be a knockout, drag-out fight. And I think it really does show the trend of USL League One, where a couple of years ago it was kind of run and gun. We're going to just run up the scores. Defense was kind of an option. And really 3 of the 4 teams are just defensive powerhouses. And Portland is no slouch themselves. Like, it is really interesting, the swings that have gone through with League One. And I'm going to be really interested to see if these 2 teams, specifically One Knox and Naples, decide to kind of sit in the first half, fill each other out, and then the second half is just absolutely blow for blow, just trying to break the other one down.
I mean, I think the thing we've seen across the board in the USL this year is nobody's going blow for blow. It's been so defensive. I mean, the stat everyone's throwing around, there were 6 goals scored in 8 games in the championship in round 1. And League One was better, but not by much. So this feels like a game that could reach added time, extra time, another shootout, frankly. But yeah, still leaning One Knox because of the flexibility. And I didn't want to shout out Nico Rosamilia, who you've got slotted in on the left wing. Rookie player this year, wasn't in the starting lineup for a large portion of the summer and the fall. It's the way he and Richie operate up that left side where Rosamilia plays quite narrow and is able to kind of influence the game, win second balls, do some of that dirty work. Really key to the mix that Knoxville has. And it's going to be a tough matchup that demands a lot of Naples. So watching that one in particular. And
with Nico Rosamilia, I just want to point out, he is Mark Doyle's like backup. Like, he's not even supposed to. That's Mark Doyle's spot. Right. And he's stepped in and done an outstanding job.
So we've already kind of heard some answers, but we're going to go down the line. John, who you got?
Yeah, One Knox.
Alex?
Knoxville.
Phil?
Well, basically confirming that they're definitely going to lose. One Knox.
I've been sitting towards FC Naples all day long, but I cannot get over the fact that One Knox has never lost at home. So I'm going to go with Naples still. I feel like defensively they are so solid, and Inderlong is a special talent up top, and Onan and Cerro are no slouch themselves over on the wings. I feel like they have the talent, and all they need is one moment, because I don't know if Knoxville can get 2 goals in this match, and that's not because of Knoxville. I think that's because of Naples. So I'm going to go with Naples having a moment of magic and shutting up shop. Let's go ahead and go on to our next match. We got Spokane taking on Portland, possibly the longest away day in U.S. soccer, where head to head, it was a close one in the first game. It was 0-0. And then game 2, Portland Hearts of Pine put the hurting on them. We went live right afterwards where they win 6-1. They were both coming out in a 4-2-3 win. But this defense for Spokane is the story, but don't sleep on that attack because Siobhan John Brown, Louise Hill, Reedy, and Nico Brett all up top for you. It's not bad. But Titus Washington and Ollie Wright just seem to be it. And who is that? Is that the cardio man himself running that midfield? By God, it is. Keegan is still doing the dang thing.
Yeah. Go ahead with that.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say that, I think that Spokane would love to say that 6-1 loss, that's a mulligan because it was like in the middle of that absolutely brutal road trip. Midweek, I think they had already been in Naples. They went to Portland and then they were going to Omaha next. Obviously they'd like to forget that one. And I think it's a reasonable thing to say that, maybe we can set that aside and look at this one with a fresh lens since Spokane's going to be at home. They're rested. That being said, I was not very impressed with Spokane's play against Tormenta. I think that they got lucky to survive that one. They were getting eaten up in the midfield so many times. Did not have very many quality shots. If that's the energy that they're going to bring against Portland, it's not happening. So as long as they've used this week to get their stuff back together, I think they have a good chance. But as we know, Portland is more than capable of running up the score on Spokane in different circumstances. Now we can talk about Hunter Morse here as Portland's just wild card. They rely on him a lot. Their defense lets a lot of shots go through. He saved 9 against Chattanooga the other day. Enough for the Portland fans to say they want to build a statue for him outside of Fitzpatrick, which I don't blame them for that. But yeah, this is going to be another good one. Give Spokane maybe a slight home advantage, but not by much at all.
Yeah, I think Spokane went into that last game against Tormenta with defensive, low block defending and counterattacking on their mind, and they probably took it too far. There were stretches of that game where Tormenta was just taking the fight to them in a way that we haven't really seen for most of this season. Spokane's going to come out looking more positive against Hearts of Pine.
Yeah, and Sean makes a great point. Wada was on a red card last week. He'll probably be in that spot with
and that was the interesting thing with that matchup for Portland was Keegan brought a level of physicality that you need against the Chattanooga Red Wolves. He was perfect for that matchup as the number 10. Wada is what you want against the Spokane Velocity, where the game is going to be a little bit more open. He can find those touches in pockets of space. Then the defense pays attention. Ollie Wright gets open. Titus Washington runs behind. You can see the dominoes falling for Hearts of Pine. I think Spokane is going to miss Colin Fernandez a lot in this game. He's been out for about a month at this point. But what he gives them in the spot that Bryce Meredith has taken over is more comfort in possession that's crucial against the Portland press. He's awesome as a ball stopper against the counterattack. They're going to need a huge performance from Meredith next to Andre Lewis if they want to survive this one.
And I think Portland obviously relied on Morse a lot, as you said, Alex. And I think they, for better or worse, they had to weather a lot of storms. And I do think there's an element of getting a win in really tough conditions, albeit a lot shorter road trip, and they didn't have to contend with all the travel. Portland winning ugly was a little bit did maybe give me a little bit more hope that, hey, there is something here to be able to get a result in Spokane. I share your lack of sort of I just was not not blown away by anything Spokane did. So I think it'll be very interesting to see how this one lines up. But I do think that this Portland team, the way that they are right now, they're just stubborn and they've got that quality to be able to like create those moments of magic. The Ollie Wright goal, it is the sort of thing that these sort of playoff runs are made of. So I don't know. It will be a very interesting matchup, and I'm hoping for maybe a little bit more excitement that we saw in round one.
Yeah, and so one interesting about the Tormenta match, though, is even though Spokane was constantly getting eaten up in the midfield, the defense still only allowed one shot on target in the first 90. So, like, you know, it's this one could be a coin flip for me.
That's kind of where I am too. While Spokane has not impressed me, did not impress me versus Tormenta, there's a part of me that also just feels like Tormenta kind of had the sauce coming into the playoffs, and there's a little bit of that as well. But so does Portland. And Phil, I think you said it well. They won dirty versus Chattanooga. Portland is not – I'm not saying that they have not shown they could be a physical team, but they kind of out-physical Chattanooga, which we hadn't really seen a team do. And while that isn't what you necessarily want to do versus a Spokane if you want to beat them, it is a way that is the way to beat them if you already have the lead. If you have a moment of brilliance from Titus Washington, from Ollie Wright, from Awada at the 10, if you have one of those moments, playing dirty, playing gritty, playing strong like that is a way to win out during the 90, getting that 1-0 win. It's certainly possible. You see the lane for Portland to win here. The biggest thing that I'm having to contend with is the travel. Can they withstand the travel? This one's not easy. Not only are they having to deal with flights, they're having to deal with like time change. They're going to be 3 hours behind. Depending on what time this game is, they're going to be kicking off at what may feel like 10, 11 o'clock at night for them. That's no small feat. That's just a lot to contend with. John, who do you have?
Spokane.
Alex?
Yeah, I think I've talked myself into Spokane. Home pitch, travel, the just slightly better defense. It's not with a high degree of confidence, but I'm going to say Spokane.
Phil?
I'm going to say Portland only because I truly think that the penalty Spokane got is like bad karma because they probably should be out. All things considered, because I don't think that was a penalty. So, yeah, I'll go Portland.
I think it's a true coin flip. I think it's going to come down to penalties. Spokane. I don't feel good about it in the slightest. All right, let's go to the championship, where, as we all expected, Pittsburgh is hosting Detroit City. We all had that one. So with Detroit City, they take down yet another Players' Shield winner. But unlike a couple of years ago, when the Pittsburgh won the Players' Shield, and I think a lot of us said, look at this back line. Look, they have oh my God, Nate Steinwasser in net. There's a world where Detroit City can take down Pittsburgh. None of us thought about that about Louisville City. And then we get a kind of a vintage performance out of Detroit City, where Saldana has one of the best saves I've seen in playoff history, clawing one out of the top corner to keep it 1-0. And that was that. Now, there is probably a loose city conversation to have here, but maybe not the time. There's Detroit City who's going to have to go into Highmark, and they've had a little success against them this year. But, hey, Pittsburgh got a 2-0 win, then they drew, but then Detroit City got 1-0 in the Jägermeister. This one's absolutely fascinating.
I mean, we know what the story will be if Detroit advances. It's the defensive discipline. That's going to be the thing that carries them if they make a run. What's interesting, even compared to those three matchups that we've seen, is that Pittsburgh has become a more complete attacking team since Rob Vincent took charge. It's Danny Griffin pushing up through the midfield. It's those underlapping runs from Beto Edrak. Detroit hasn't faced a Pittsburgh team that looked like this. And to me, that's really meaningful. Pittsburgh has become a better threat without sacrificing any of the defensive excellence we always associate with them. I just don't even see, like, are you going to stop Etu and Mertz? How do you deal with all up in those pockets where he's just roving in zone 14? And I know they just did it against Louisville, but Pittsburgh is a little bit more pragmatic. They're more comfortable living in whatever the game state is going to be versus a Louisville team that wants to be in certain situations at all times. I doubted Detroit last week, so what do I know? But I really lean towards Pittsburgh here.
I kind of share the sentiment. I think something that struck me about the Louisville match was how Louisville, when they conceded, started treating it like it was the 90th minute for the next half or the next hour, where they were like, we have to score now, like we have to equalize immediately. And so they started playing sort of this like desperation ball, when it's like, hey guys, you have an hour, like you'll be fine, just like stick to your game. And they weren't comfortable in that game state. They just like they've trailed so few times this year, like on paper that's probably they just aren't used to playing like that. Pittsburgh, they strike me as a little bit less maybe flappable in that particular way. It's at Highmark. And yet Detroit City did this 2 years ago, right? Like they went into Highmark and won a game they had no business winning. So who are we, like you said, John, to doubt Detroit City at this point? And like logic still leans Riverhounds for this one.
I guess for me, this one feels like, can Augie Williams find Augie Williams? Can he be himself? Because, he has 9-10 goals on the season, but it doesn't feel like that. This doesn't feel like a vintage Augie Williams season. On the other side of that, can Darren Smith find the same kind of prowess he had earlier on this year? Can Jude find that kind of level to him that he did at Lexington? You're looking up top because I don't think any of us are doubting this defensive midfield and back line. Even Saldana for Detroit City was a question mark for me all year long in net. And this is coming after Steinwasser, whom I think is the best goalie to play in the USL Championship. I really do. I think that highly of him. Saldana is going to be a step down, but he showed what he can be versus Lou City. Saldana keeps showing up versus the big teams in big moments that the back lines are going to be fine. It's, can the attack do something? I'm looking over at an All, at a Mertz, at a Griffin, really getting into those spaces. And I really enjoy what I see going forward. But can they break down a Wheat? Can they break down a Bryant? Can they break down an Alma Williams? Even a Jay Chapman who likes to sit in deep just a little bit. I don't know. This one feels like it could be destined to once again go to PKs. And I know it's a cop-out, but even so, Saldana is well-versed in PKs, but so is Eric Dick. This is probably the most even matchup for me throughout all the playoffs. So, with that, John, who you got?
I just don't see Detroit scoring a goal in this game. So, by that logic, Pittsburgh.
Do you see Pittsburgh scoring a goal, though?
Yeah, I'm telling on myself by continually just picking against Detroit, but I think Pittsburgh's going to win like 2-0. Yeah.
Okay. Alex?
Yeah, I want it to be Detroit, but I think it's going to be Pittsburgh.
Phil?
Yeah, I'm gonna give the Northern Guard their red meat and pick Pittsburgh.
I'm also going to take Pittsburgh, but I'm really not happy about it. I'm really not. I just trust what they have going on in the attack just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Although if Darren Smith becomes April Darren Smith again, this could easily be Detroit City game. I don't know.
And really quick before we move on, I do just want to clarify the fact that I said that this would be the stupidest possible outcome if Detroit City beat Louisville. I still think that it's bad for USL that Louisville's not, like, this Louisville team doesn't get to keep playing. And Danny Dicchio and company are absolutely bad men for going into Louisville and getting a win. Like, and credit to all of them, because it was like the tallest task, and they went and got it done. So shout out to them for pulling off what we all probably thought was basically impossible.
Absolutely. Hey, we got Tulsa versus Phoenix Rising. I think several people saw this one happening. Maybe not in the fashion that I did. Phil, we are.
Well, I mean,
about El Paso,
since Phoenix got a bye into this round, like it was, and they obviously didn't play a game before this, so obviously we saw that side of it happening. It's weird that the 5 seed got a bye, but
USL and their crazy rules. FC Tulsa. We talked about Colorado Springs already, but they do get through. I don't know. For me, you see FC Tulsa, they've been so good all year long. You love what you're seeing on the pitch, but I cannot shake the feeling that Phoenix is still just the bad man when it comes to the playoffs.
Phoenix, since they changed into the back 3 formation, I think it's 4 weeks ago, they've given up like 1.9 XG across 4 games. They held El Paso to the least expected goals of any playoff team since they started tracking that stat in the USL, which, put aside the El Paso of it all, that is dominant defending, where you're suffocating the opposition. You are so comfortable in your low block. And I think Paul Mudaka has proven to be pretty flexible within this setup. For what you see on the lineup graphic, Rafael Shihus has played in the center for most of this new look. They put him on the left side against El Paso to take advantage of their narrowness and let him be that passer through the lines. Charlie Dennis and Darius Johnson at those kind of wing 10 spots, depending on who they're playing, one is going to be higher, one is going to be lower in the press. There is a level of intelligence to what Rising are doing right now that, frankly, we hadn't seen for the 30 weeks prior to the postseason. Tulsa, at the same time, they're the number 1 seed for a reason. They can win ugly like we saw against Colorado Springs. It's an odd situation here because my gut says Tulsa. I really trust what they're doing. Can they break Phoenix down? I think that's an open question.
Yeah, that for me is the like standout thing about this is Tulsa's goal scoring has just dried up a little bit, and that's where I get concerned. They've always found a way this year.
Yeah.
And it's basically the calculus we're doing for this one is like, is Tulsa's magic this year because it's their season and like they are the main characters of the story? Or is Phoenix doing Phoenix and hitting stride at exactly the right time when they can make this like magical run in the playoffs yet again? I don't know. I would say it's pretty balanced right now because the vibes in Phoenix are extremely good. But Tulsa also got a very energizing win in front of a packed One Oak, which was really, really cool to see. So going into Tulsa, I think, will be a different sort of prospect for Phoenix than what they faced in El Paso, unfortunately.
Yeah, with Tulsa, I look at Kalira and I keep telling myself that he might be the best striker left in the playoffs on the championship side. But I also just I haven't seen it in a while now, where I know what I have seen, but I feel like I haven't truly seen it out of him recently. Meanwhile, John, you mentioned the solidity on the back line for Phoenix. I don't know if anybody's breaking them down. Someone that we don't talk about nearly enough, and I guess that's our fault, but JP Sears is also just kind of that guy, right? He defensively, he's solid, but he's also one of the better passers that you have in this league. He can make that line splitting ball. And let's say this one does go 1-1 all the way into extra time. We've seen this one before. We saw it in the U.S. Open Cup this year where Phoenix wins 4-2 on penalties. We've already seen this song and dance play out in a knockout tournament. I don't know. This one just once again feels very toss-up-y, and that is the magic of these playoffs, where every team just feels so close to each other that I'm not sure what to make of it. I also find myself looking at the center back pairing of Ian and Batista, where I believe they've only played 4 games together all year long, not including last match. That's not what you want going into the playoffs. This is not a tried and tested center back pairing. And when you have a Hope Evievu, who was on my ballot for player of the year, by the way, I think he's that good. That's not what you want, even though playing him as striker and not the 10 is still weird to me.
Yeah, I mean, he's more of a false 9 anyway, because they're just being weird right now. But yeah, that's not optimal. And I think it's going to be tough for Phoenix to score goals. That's really the downside of the new shape, is the offense has dried up, and it's never going to come easy against Tulsa. You're right to mention the chemistry at center back, but Ian, who they got in late September, it took a while to get him with the proper visa, whatnot, after the window ended. He's been unbelievably good in that back line. He brings some of that kind of attack dog energy that, frankly, Batista and AB Sissoko had together. The fact that they got somebody in that late and he's just hit the ground running is a major reason why, like, they, to me, are maybe the favorite of all teams left to go on and win this thing.
So, John, who you got?
So despite the fact that I was there for Patrick Krakowski doing the thing in a shootout in the Jägermeister Cup in April, I'm going to pick against Phoenix. I just feel like Tulsa's deep. Luke Spencer has been unreal. That environment at 1OK is legit. So yeah, FC Tulsa.
Alex?
Yeah, I'm also going to say a close 1-0 victory for Tulsa with another goal from super sub Stefan Lukic.
Phil?
Yeah, I'm going Tulsa. I just think they've got the juice right now, and going into ONEOK is going to be a tall task for any team, and so I'm back in the birds. Wait, which bird? The
Firebird, flying
split
bird.
tail.
Scissor tail.
My bad.
Yeah. I think I saw ONEOK was at 95% capacity, by the way, this last match, and it felt every bit of it on TV. Just absolutely incredible atmosphere. If they get that same kind of atmosphere, a part of me feels like Phoenix plays up to that, and that scares me a little bit more for Tulsa, but maybe that's because I live in Phoenix sphere. I'm still going to go Tulsa, though. I think they're the most complete team left in the playoffs on the championship side. Aforementioned North Carolina FC. We've talked a lot about this.
Oh, I'm just kidding.
Sorry. The question here, we can talk about the matches as they were. Rhode Island doesn't know how to score. but they have one of the best back lines we've seen, or best defenses we've seen in the USL this year. They just don't know how to score. That North Carolina has goal scorers, and boy, did they shut up shop versus Loudoun. But what North Carolina is going to come out? Is there going to be North Carolina that's literally fighting for their jobs because this is their final audition to get a new contract? Or are they going to be under the weather? Is things going to get sad? I talked about it on Soccer Down Here, which is going to air tomorrow. But we saw it with Phoenix versus San Diego Loyal. When Phoenix won, you felt it in the stands of everybody saying, oh, God, it's happening. Like, this is over. It's happening. And the way the energy shifted in the stadium, you saw it on the players. Now, maybe you have a Conway who experienced that, is able to get the team to overcome that a little bit. But I don't know. This is going to be a fascinating test of this North Carolina team, especially if they go down. How will the fans react? How will the players react if they go down 1-0 to Rhode Island at any point?
Well, you're right to point out, like, even if they don't play, having Evan Conway and Colin Martin in that changing room, I think is really going to be useful for them in this moment. I just have a tough time looking away from what Rhode Island did in the last round. I have spent most of 2025 being pretty perplexed whenever the lineup graphic comes out for Rhode Island. Kano has made some choices with player deployments that have flummoxed me throughout the season. And every single decision he made in that Charleston game was pitch perfect. The use of Holstad as that kind of number 10 right winger really made it hard for Aaron Malloy to find pockets. Bacharach and Harivo cover so much space in the midfield, and both are so good in those post-recovery counter-press situations, keeping their foot on the ball and making sure Charleston couldn't take advantage. You could keep going on, but I think the fact of the matter is the game plan to shut down the battery and know that you're going to grit this thing out until added time was pretty savvy from Kano Smith. I anticipate it's going to be a little bit different here. These teams, as you mentioned above, they played pretty recently. North Carolina was in the 4-4-2 at that point, and they found some looks for Alex Anderson. It was gritty, kind of low block defending, try to get Rhode Island out of that comfort zone that they spent the entire match against the Battery in. To me, I think Rhode Island is going to be able to manipulate this game and get into the positions where they are best, but you can't count out the emotions, and I think that's what makes it so fascinating.
Before anybody jumps in really fast, I have no idea what's going to happen on this wingback side because Quizera gets sent off on a straight red. So we may see Fuson drop into that wingback like we've seen him do in the past, or we could see Sanchez go there. Not really sure. So both options are listed at the wingback spot. So just kind of be aware of that.
Yeah. I think Rhode Island just feels a little more chaotic, which they use to their advantage in Charleston. They obviously, there's some repercussions from that. I do think Quizera is a big miss in this game, but I don't know. It's this one to me is like maybe the most toss up of all of them, just because North Carolina have the ability to like shut a game down and just make it about a single chance or a single moment. But that's what Rhode Island did against Charleston. So it feels very much like these are two teams that are going to try to do similar things. That being said, I think I'd probably just about shade toward Rhode Island in that I feel like they can move North Carolina around a lot more than Loudoun managed to do, unfortunately. So yeah. And RIP the Lads Protocol 2025. Loudoun did that one more time for us, but unfortunately could not keep it going. So yeah, I don't know. This is a very fascinating matchup, but it'll be interesting to see how Quizera's suspension impacts it.
Yeah, I've noticed that Rhode Island through the regular season did have trouble scoring goals on teams that are above the the bottom of the table. So yeah, that 26
With all-
goals all year. Wow.
Yeah. With all that said, John, who you got?
Rhode Island.
Alex?
Man. I think NCFC has one more in them.
Phil?
I'm nothing if not pandering. So for all the homies in the chat, I'm going Rhode Island.
I'm going to go Rhode Island. I think they are going to shut up shop defensively from the get-go. And I don't know. I feel like if Rhode Island gets one goal, I think you're about to start to see like sad North Carolina fans, and the vibe is just going to be weird, just really weird. So I'm going to go with Rhode Island. Last but not least, we have New Mexico taking on Orange County. New Mexico with the biggest blowout of the weekend. They get a 2-0 win over San Antonio. And Orange County, hey, make sure I got his name right. Is it Komodo?
Cadona. Tetsuya
Cadona.
Cadona.
Thank you.
I think.
Cadona.
Yeah.
Cadona. He comes in and is the penalty savior. And this is a fascinating matchup for me because we look at the names on paper for New Mexico, and I'm loving every single name that I'm seeing. But Orange County was my personal pick to win the West coming into the season, and there's not much that's different. So what's going to happen? Are we going to see a Sanchez team really turn the corner and make it to that Western Conference final like we saw last year? Or is Orange County finally getting it together and finally putting something where they are who I thought they were?
I think amidst all the upsets, it got lost that New Mexico absolutely eviscerated San Antonio. Like, that was by a mile the best performance of the weekend. If they look half that sharp this Saturday, Orange County is going to have a very tough time. And that's nothing against Orange County, who did really well to shut Sacramento down. But the versatility, the variety of New Mexico's attack when it's really flowing, I don't think there's a defense in the West that can stop it. So then what's the scenario for Orange County? You defend in the 4-4-2. You need Traeger and Jamison to come good on the counterattack. Those two had their moments against the Republic, didn't really have the end product close to goal. Need a little bit more risk taking. That was very much we're going to see this thing out being defensive minded. That's not going to fly given what we know New Mexico can do in the final third. So love to see some bravery on Orange County's side if they want to pull this thing off.
Yeah, as much as it pains me to say, this New Mexico, for as much as they have not, like, I want to be clear, I haven't changed the fact that up until this point, they have not impressed me for large parts of the season. Like, it hasn't clicked to this degree. And against San Antonio, it clicked. Like, this was what it was supposed to look like most of the season. I'm very concerned for Orange County. I'll just say that. I think like this is going to be extremely difficult. Like you said, John, I don't think they can afford to sit back. I think they've got to be bold. And the danger of that is they can get scythed apart like San Antonio did in parts of this match. I'm very, I think New Mexico put together the most complete opening round of anybody. Probably on either side of the bracket. And I just think that where they're at right now, if they continue riding the energy of that first win, they are probably, well, they're making it to the West final. We'll see what happens from there. But yeah, it's this is I don't know. This is a very, very tall task for Orange County. I'll just say that.
And they came in there 3 weeks ago and put in 3 goals. They came in 3 weeks ago and put up 3 goals at New Mexico.
With 3 assists from Chris Heggart, who will not be playing in this game because of the red card. That, to me, is really going to be a game changer for Orange County. It wrecks what they try to do in possession. I suspect it'll be Usman Silla on that left side, kind of playing tucked in. He's been their late game super sub, but the level of technique and creativity he has is the closest thing they can use to recreate Hegart. But yeah, missing him in this matchup is going to be a huge hurdle.
For me, I am looking at Orange County, and obviously the attack is right to point out here. I don't think there's a world where Orange County can walk away with winning this one 1-0 or even 2-1. I think that they have to get 3 goals. So you're looking at a Jameson, you're looking at Traeger, you're looking at Zubak saying, what can you give us? But if they're going to hold on, I'm looking at Benalcazar, and he has been one of the most impressive players in the USL for me. When we talked to Danny Stone earlier this year, he was someone that was slotting in the central of the midfield. He was someone sitting in the defensive mid. He was someone who has gone back to being a center back, just up and down the pitch. A really good ball playing center back like that is someone that you want to be able to take down in New Mexico. So that could be someone that you're looking at who maybe he can play through a little bit of a pressure, find those passes, draw in the defense just a little bit, and then make the pass to the pass. And is he going to be able to do that 3 times? I don't think so. But I still think that might be the person to circle if you're Orange County trying to find a path into this. Not so quietly, and to Tamara, who's in the chat, I'm sorry for saying this. I am not so quietly hoping that the lab gets to host something like one of these big matches, because it is the atmosphere is absolutely unbelievable. The pitch, not amazing, but the atmosphere is absolutely unbelievable. And if you're a neutral and you have not watched a New Mexico United match, just put it on. You're going to be stunned at the atmosphere out there. John, who you got?
New Mexico.
Alex?
Yeah, New Mexico is they're too deep, and they're New Mexico.
Phil, blink twice if you need help.
I'm going New Mexico. The one little asterisk I'm putting on this is goalkeeping wise, edge Orange County. Like Shuttler, if it came down to it, Shuttler versus Shakes. Shuttler is I'm definitely putting my money on him.
Shuttler. It would not be Shuttler because
in a shootout. Yeah, they would go Cardano, I guess.
Yeah,
Cardano.
Yeah, I guess not. But either way. No, too. So, goalkeeping
for 120 minutes in the run of play, you take Colin Shuttler every day.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's also the concern is like Shakes had a good game against San Antonio. Don't get me wrong. And to me, he is like a bit of a liability. So I think that that's the only like thing that I look at this New Mexico team and say, like, could they potentially got it would be something in that department.
I'm also going to go with New Mexico. Maybe this is the year. We've been saying it for several years now, but hey, the path is right there in front of them. So with all that, that's all the playoffs for this week. Next week, we are going to be previewing a League One final, which is exciting. We kind of gave you who we thought it would be. I don't even remember who we all picked, so you remember more than we do. And then we're going to be talking about conference finals, which is super exciting. Was there any other news that we did not really get to? Oh, Tony Scholes, we didn't really mention, of being Division I president. That happened. He was the Premier League's chief football officer, which I looked into what that meant. Basically just meant he talked to clubs and was just like, run your academies right. Like just basically told them how to get their academies in order and just not blow all their money, from what it seemed like.
That being said,
sorry. Go ahead.
I have a meme before you get to the serious discussion.
Please, do the meme first. Start with the meme.
So I do find it very interesting that amidst all of the articles about Tony Scholes getting announced in this role, the one negative one that popped up of the front was from Forbes, who just so happens to value all of the MLS clubs at, $11 bajillion. And said that a lack of MLS experience was like a huge negative. Like, he doesn't understand the history of American soccer. And I was like, was this penned by Don Garber? Like, did he write this? Because it felt like a very specific hit piece by a publication that has inflated the value of, basically worked overtime to inflate the value of MLS franchises.
I will not hear any Forbes slander, as the USL show was proudly presented on Forbes.com. So listen, I will not hear any Forbes slander.
I found the reaction to this hire to be unbelievably outsized. Like, the role he had in the yes, people saw the word Premier League and were like, oh, this is a big deal. Like, he helped build the schedule and make sure player eligibility rules were followed. That to me doesn't say like, oh, he is going to be a game changer. Is it awesome to have somebody familiar with the highest level of the game running D1? Absolutely. Is it the kind of story that like breaks containment from the USL sphere? I was surprised that that's what happened.
And then when it's followed by the NCFC news, it kind of puts a damper on it.
Tony Scholes killed North Carolina.
And also, he ran Stoke okay. Like, that's a club in England versus a brand new league in America. Like, I don't know if that's relevant experience.
First thing I typed into Google was, are Tony Scholes and Paul Scholes related?
Same thought.
They're from the UK, so they're at least distant cousins, but like, I'm just kidding. That's not.
I wasn't paying attention when I was doing the research on Tony Scholes, and I clicked on a Paul Scholes wiki page. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, this guy played for Manchester United. That's insane. And I was like, oh, wrong guy. My bad. So, but that was news.
We had one other good news today. Omaha assistant and interim head coach Vincino Candela got promoted to full-time for next year. Well-deserved.
Oh, and Sporting Jacks had a...
Sporting Jacks also named a coach.
Fox, who was
from Hearts of Midlothian.
Yeah, and over in Scotland, which, if the Robbie Nielsen precedent is anything to go off of, coming over from Scotland, I don't know. But I think Jacksonville, from what we've seen on the Super League side, they've got a good head on their shoulders, and I'm kind of trusting the process that he's going to be pretty good there.
And Brooklyn seems to be moving. Expecting an announcement soon. I mean, they're holding introductory. Right. Yeah, they're holding like events with their general manager or sporting director. So I mean, like I assume things are coming very soon.
Now that Zoran's mayor, anything is possible.
Or maybe they'll just up and move like the Barstool guy and just say, oh, I'm out of New York.
Taking you down to Florida, right? Yeah.
Bye.
We're moving this team to Buffalo.
Go to
Peter Marlette, eat your heart out.
No offense to Hoboken. I'm sure it's a lovely place.
Yeah.
What anything else USL related? This was a loaded show.
It's a few things to discuss.
Yeah. So with all that, how about some final thoughts for the night? John.
Yeah, I mean, at risk of being too political, very happy with the mayoral results in my city today. And especially in just not getting Andrew Cuomo. Like, that's a great outcome for everybody involved. So, by the way, I recommend, if you aren't familiar with the New York mayor's race, just look up Curtis Sliwa, who was the Republican candidate, and kind of watch him talk for 5 minutes. You will end up, he feels like a sketch comedy character that just like escaped into real life. he's a character. So yep, I guess my recommendation is like watch videos of this insane man.
Well,
I find it so fascinating.
I try to
living in a
avoid
town.
yellow cabs because I got shot in the back of a yellow cab by the Gottis and the Gambinos in 1992. Whatever. Yeah, he's a trip.
Was that Shane Gillis who did him on Saturday Night Live
Yes,
this
that's
weekend?
right,
And
yeah.
so you're saying like that was just an accurate portrayal?
That's like his
Yeah,
real
that's
life.
not even.
That's
they
that's-
didn't even write that. That's
They
just
just like
something he
quoted
said.
him.
Yeah.
He's the dad to 17 foster cats. He's always wearing that red beret. He's an odd character.
I mean, that's what sometimes makes the city go around, having those batshit crazy.
That's right.
I always find it
People
so
from-
fascinating living somewhere that people pay attention to who your mayor is. Like, genuinely, my hometown, I have no idea if they were even elected. I think they just showed up. Not a clue. Alex.
I got nothing. Oh man. Oh yeah. It's yeah. I don't have anything today.
I will say, Alex, I feel like me and you, it's the time of year where we are between the playoffs and end of season decisions. It is nonstop for the news
Yeah.
cycle.
Yeah. I mean, I woke up this morning to a text about NCFC for I'm like, it's like 6:30 in the morning. Like already with this already.
Phil?
Yeah, I got nothing else.
Less serious, but I finally am getting around to watching The Studio. And man, it's just really well done. It's like if a sitcom took the stylistic. I talked about La La Land last week, and it's like if somebody was like, what if La La Land was a sitcom? And Seth Rogen is a studio executive that everybody hates, and he's totally neurotic about the whole thing. It is. I was surprised by the amount of cameos, where people just play
crazy.
themselves. And I was particularly taken aback by Olivia Wilde, because, you know, rumors around Hollywood is that she is nuts, like in real life, especially as a director. She's like extremely demanding, all this sort of stuff. And then she plays herself in the show and is a psycho. Like she as herself is nuts. And I was like, they're really just steering into the skid here. But no, it's a super entertaining show. A lot of the cinematography is like super interesting for a TV show. And so if you're looking for like, hey, why do I still have this Apple TV subscription? Ted Lasso and Shrinking have not been on in a while. Like, you can watch The Studio. It's legit.
I don't know if anybody listening to this follows college football at all, but you know, I live in a college town. I still live in Tuscaloosa, where the University of Alabama is, and
they're like good
part
at
of my
football
job is,
or something, or
it depends who you ask. So, but part of my job is having the band play at football games, Friday Night Lights, the whole thing. And at least once every couple weeks, an Alabama football player will be at the local high school football game that is in the same town. And like my kids are like, oh my God, do you see that guy? He plays football at Alabama. And I'm like, yes, the football player is at a football game in the town that he currently lives. I know this comes to a shock to you, and it always just boggles my mind that they're just like shocked that local football player attends local football game. But one of the guys was Kalen Proctor, who he is a massive human being. Every now and then I do get next to one of those guys, and I remember that we're just simply not the same species. Like he has to be like 6'6", 290 something pounds. And I'm like, he could throw me across this field like a football. Like I am just a tiny human.
This is my thing at the start of the NBA season where you think about the point guard is the small guy. And in this day and age, they're all like 6'3" and like twice my size. It's remarkable. The fact that they like grow humans like that doesn't make sense.
I have a very distinct memory of going to watch an Alabama Kentucky basketball game, and I was like 12, I think, and I'm sitting up on this platform that's maybe a foot and a half off the court, and up comes Willie Cauley-Stein, who
Yeah.
7'2", and I'm on this foot and a half platform, and he's still towering over me. And that was my first moment of like, oh, they're just like tall. Like, I'm not going to be that tall level of tall. Crazy moment. So, any final things? I think that's about it.
Mayor-elect Mamdani, make Brooklyn FC. Make sure it happens.
Yeah, I will say it's tough for me as a Spurs fan that he's an Arsenal guy. Like, that was the one drawback with Mamdani.
We just want to see Brooklyn take the pitch.
That's a really random thing I discovered today. Jacksonville State University, they have a pet band, and their pet band logo is literally just the Tottenham Hotspur, but the ball is a basketball.
That rocks.
Yeah. So if you're interested in seeing the Hardcores logo, which is the Jacksonville State University name, their logo is just the Hotspur logo with a basketball.
How can you own something that's intellectual? That's my down with intellectual property.
With that,
imagine that's my political take for down with intellectual property law.
And with that, I don't know what else to do with this show. Here, for the first and final time tonight, here's Alan's voice.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show.
The USL Show is now proudly part of the Protagonist podcast family. Please go to protagonistsoccer.com to check out more work. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see everyone again next time.